Hey, my name's Jonathan, and I'm a veteran.
Hi, my name is Daryl, and I'm a veteran.
My name is Chad, and I'm a veteran.
Hey, I'm Travis. I'm an Air Force veteran.
Hi, my name's Ashley, and I'm a veteran.
Well, hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Thank you all for joining tonight. Hope everybody's having a wonderful evening and had a great weekend thus far. I wanted to start by saying if you or your town happen to be in the path of Hurricane Helene, definitely you are in my thoughts, and be sure to reach out and let us know how you're doing. Also, what we have is one of the things that I learned was that the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina are quote unquote not okay. And I bring that up because Mind Over Land, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that takes veterans out on 6 trips a year. Then they also have over Veterans Day weekend, a gathering of veteran supporters and their families, etc. It would be their second annual coming up in November, and they have it in the Blue Ridge Mountains. They have a couple that have land, and they donate it to them, to Mind Over Land, specifically for this event. So I will be sure to keep everybody updated on how that is looking. And if you haven't already, please be sure to go out. You can go to mindoverland.org and you can sign up. It is free to go. They do have, they'll have some food vendors there, etc. But it's a great time, a wonderful way to meet veterans, exchange stories, have some good laughs and camaraderie. So also, Vet Fest here in Tennessee is going to be October 5th. That'll be in Franklin, Tennessee. That's the Vet Fest and Hero Stroll. And if you haven't already gotten tickets, you can do so. You can go out to vetfest.org, I believe, and the tickets are free. It's just a way that they know that you're coming. They can kind of plan accordingly. Also, if you haven't already, a great read, and this is called Of Vital Interest. This is by Frank DeMith. He was a guest on the show. He is an Army veteran. He is an author, and he did, according to the jacket, he was the Army interpreter and translator, and was the one who helped develop that program specifically for the Army. So a really great read here. I also heard from a veteran friend of mine who also was a guest on the show, and he is sending me his newest book. I should say new book. This will be his first book. I'm really excited about it. I know we talked about it on the show when he first came on. It is called War Junkie, a Cautionary Tale. That is by Kirk Spradley. So I am super excited to get that. And when we do, I will be sure to get that out to everybody so everybody can kind of see what the cover looks like. It has been apparently number 1 and number 2 on Amazon's list for books. So really excited about that, to get that one. And then today, in case you did not know, today marks the 125th anniversary of the VFW. So happy birthday, VFW. We appreciate you being there. Jason, Jim, thank you guys very much for showing up tonight. We appreciate it. I have a wonderful guest waiting in the background, and I really want to make sure he gets a very warm welcome. So please help me welcome John Siver II. Siver, singular.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I really appreciate you doing this. It means a lot. So thank you. Jova Q, welcome. So how has your weekend been going?
Oh, I've had a great weekend. They go by too fast, for sure.
And the older we get, the faster they go.
It
Just
seems
saying.
that way. Like I was in my 20s forever, and then all of a sudden you get your 30s and then 40s, and time moves quickly.
Yeah, it gets worse. So, all right, I'm going to start off with the question that I always ask each of my guests, and it is about your childhood. Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood, how that was?
Yeah. I think in general, had a pretty good childhood. I grew up in upstate New York, a small town north of Syracuse called Watertown, right on the Canadian border. Big winters.
Oh, yeah.
So playing in the snow and skiing was a big thing. You better figure a hobby out in upstate New York if you want to survive and find enjoyment.
Yeah.
So about 3.5 years old or so, my brother put me on skis. We were so fortunate to have a little ski area behind our house. I don't use the word mountain. That would be a bit of a stretch, but it was a wonderful little family ski area. I have a lot of great memories from Dry Hill. So I'll give a shout out to Dry Hill. And that was the beginning of, my joy of winter because they're long. And Watertown, New York at the time is the home of 10th Mountain Division. So any Army folks out there, used to be Camp Camp Pine back in the day, Camp Drum, and then Fort Drum is a really substantial 10th Mountain Division light infantry base. So
good to know.
Yeah, so Watertown is roughly, I want to say 40,000 people, maybe.
Wow.
So when I was growing up for quite a while, it was less than that. So it was kind of a place where more or less everybody knew everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And if you didn't know them, you knew of them or somebody knew them. So it was a relatively safe place to grow up. People all knew who your family or your parents were, kind of thing. So it was kind of a forgiving place, but at the same time, you couldn't get away with much, put it that way.
Right.
So growing up, outside of skiing, I played sports. I was always into sports. I come from a really large, gregarious Irish family. My dad was one of 15.
Oh, wow. I thought my husband's family was large. One of 15 is really large.
Yeah, you can imagine. So, growing up, my father grew up my grandfather had a dairy farm. And
was this in New York?
Yep. This is actually outside of Watertown, is Brownville. So my father growing up, just the work ethic that family had was unbelievable in those times. He was born in 1936.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think probably by the time he was 8 years old, he was working in the barn, doing, he thought he wanted to start working. My father later in life told me he started working at 8 years old and he never stopped.
Yeah. I think that's true for a lot of that generation.
Yeah. So my dad was the first state champion wrestler of his high school. I think it was 1955. And General Brownville, New York. And so he had 10 brothers. It was 10 brothers, 5 sisters. 10 boys in total, 5 girls. So you have to imagine it during that era, everybody worked pretty hard. They were pretty fit, strong boys. And over time, my dad, most of my family has served in the military. So I come from a large military family.
Okay. All right.
So we have since World War II represented about every conflict and every branch of service. So that's the Coast Guard too, Marine Corps, Air Force, Navy. We're primarily a seafaring family for whatever reason. Most of my uncles were Navy. My Uncle Jim in World War II. My father was also, he served on the Arleigh Burke destroyers in the 50s as a reservist. And I had an Uncle Gary in Vietnam with the Air Force. And my Uncle Pete Siver was a paratrooper in the Army. And
goodness.
Ernie was in the Marine Corps. I've got a cousin who's serving active duty with the Coast Guard right now. And a whole host of others. We're a huge family. Our last family reunion was 213 people. So,
oh my gosh,
you can imagine we definitely contributed.
Half the town was family.
Yeah, there was a joke about our family, sports. Some families lived in one district and another. So it was like Siver takes the snap, Siver throws the ball, and Siver catches the ball, Siver makes the tackle. It was that kind of, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, a lot of great stories, but growing up, you know, with a dad like that, it was, just a big work ethic. There was always stuff to do, always projects, active fishing, hunting. Our family had a big hunting camp, and it was a cool family to grow up in, and it's still a cool family to be a part of.
Yeah, and I can imagine, just the hunting camp alone because the stories, my husband tells when he would go to hunting camp with all of the uncles and his dad and the cousins and yeah.
Yeah. Well, we sometimes would joke that you don't take firearms to hunting camp. That's how people get hurt. So,
I love it. I love it.
yeah,
And
so that camp is still in within the family, and my grandfather was buying land, and they would log trees, they would buy more land, they would log trees, they would buy more land until they've amassed something crazy it's like a total of 1,000 acres. I think they leased 200 strategically so they can travel across to different parts of land. But it's a great place. It's if you want to get off the grid and just relax. It's a really cool place. It's pretty special.
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, were you studious in school?
This is a great question. This is a great topic. If you read my report cards, I still have, when you're a child.
Okay.
I was definitely rambunctious and was not one to want to sit still. Definitely the social, chatty Cathy, and a little bit of the jokester, but a pretty good and decent student. Like a lot of young boys, definitely had a hard time just focusing, sitting in a traditional classroom for a straight 8 hours. And
right.
So I did all right though. I did pretty well in school. I learned, totally poor time management. I learned to multitask quickly, doing a lot of homework on the fly.
Yes.
So yeah, I had a great group of friends. Like I said, growing up in a small town, it was just a safe place. The stuff that we used to do, you hear what's going on in these bigger cities, and it was just totally different. We went camping, we had bonfires, and the classic quintessential kind of high school parties. Nobody ever got in too much trouble, and people really didn't get hurt, and it was so it was good. I got really into outdooring. I participated in the Boy Scouts.
Oh, okay. You're a Boy Scout.
Yeah, I actually, I know it wasn't cool. It's kind of funny. Like some things just aren't cool, right? And the Boy Scouts are awesome. It was such a formative time, and you're learning, and you've got a lot of different, I guess you could say, dads, right, participating, right. And you're learning about servitude, you're learning about community service, you're learning survival skills, you're not tying in all these applicable and important lessons that you're going to use later in life. You don't realize it when you're 10 or 11 and you're using a compass, but and the funny thing is because Fort Drum being so close, I remember Boy Scout camp, there was a lot of opportunities with the soldiers that used to volunteer and help out. But it's one of the first places I had formal shooting experience was at Boy Scout camp, with 22s.
Really? Okay. Now I don't know if they still do that.
I don't know. It's probably sad because of liability. I know the Boy Scouts are going through a lot of stuff, and it really stinks because it really can be a cool organization for young boys. Nowadays, if there's a young boy, people that maybe don't have positive male role models, or you live in an urban environment, in such a great escape to be able to get out, go camping, and learn. To this day, I can still ride a canoe that's taken on water because of Boy Scout camp. Nice. And there's some skills, and I remember doing the polar bear plunge in Camp Portaferry in upstate New York in the summertime. Was pretty cold. And we'll get to this later because it's a little bit foreshadowing about where my life would go, dealing with a lot of these skills. But at the time, it was just good fun with my buddies. And I didn't stick with it all the way through. As an adult, I definitely have regrets. But like I said, when you start getting to the point where you're driving in high school, at the time, it just never seemed to feel really cool to be in the Boy Scouts.
Right.
And And as an adult now, I hope there's a lot of things that I can change with my own children. I've got 2 sons, 9 and 12, actually about to be 10 and 12. And it's about what's cool and what's not. There's things that weren't cool. Like some people, right? Faith seems kind of weird or corny and not cool, or the Boy Scouts and what you learn in the bigger scheme of life. Those are great things. And the sooner you learn that, or that you have people around you supporting those things and letting you know that they are valuable and very important and useful in life, maybe we can do a little better as adults to change the perception of some of those areas.
Right. So Jason says he thinks some use air rifles now.
Oh, probably. I mean, there's a lot of liability, things that have happened in the world. It's like you send your kid to scout camp and nobody wants to hear about an accident or something like that.
Right.
So that would make total sense.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with a pellet gun. Broke a lot of neighbors' garage windows and shot a lot of squirrels or something that I wasn't supposed to. But overall, childhood in upstate New York was good. It wasn't all roses. My parents had a dysfunctional marriage and divorced. Later in life, you realize there's pros and cons to that. A little bit of independence. I chose to live with my dad. Actually, that was by choice. So it was kind of another version of living in hunting camp. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The first time my dad sent school lunches to school, I was like, "Hey, Dad, I'm like 10. I don't know who you're feeding. Like 3 sandwiches, all this stuff. I don't know if you realize I was coming home that day at 3 p.m." So we figured it out, and you adapt and overcome. And I think some of those skills, life skills that maybe you learn in an unconventional manner, come back later to pay off.
How was it? I'm sure it was not any big deal when you went to your parents and said, okay, I'm going to go into the service. But seeing as how it runs in the family, but how was it that your mom, how did she take it? And how did you decide what branch?
Okay. So we'll get into that. So it's kind of I initially was really against going into the military. I was like, that's not for me. I'm going to college.
Okay.
All those, the recruiters would come to school. I'd always fill out my buddies' names, so they would harass them, and which was actually pretty fantastic. And I remember informing one of my buddies why this recruiter was harassing him. There's Army recruiters calling his house during dinner time every night. And he's like, I don't want to be in the Army. I'm not going. I'm going to college. And the guy's like, okay, I'll call you back in 2 days. And finally, I was like, yeah, that was me. And I would get all those offers in the mail, and I was like, I have no interest. And my dad would say, okay, all right. I was an athlete, and so I was a lacrosse player, and I was a skier. And, growing up, skiing wasn't really a part of school sports, right? So
right.
I did double duty in the winter. I wrestled, I followed in my dad's footsteps from 2nd grade until 8th grade. I think I kind of hung it up. I was really frustrated at the time. I wish I stuck with it because it's such a great sport, and it would have been really good for me. But I just hung it up. I think there was some things going on with my dad and I was a way to upset him, to be honest with you. And that was his game, and he was was a state champion, and I think maybe I was, I don't know, something about, and I was forging my own path, and so
right.
I excelled at lacrosse. My brother's a lacrosse player. And, upstate New York is one of the hotbeds of lacrosse where, actually the game started with the American Indians, the Irondequoit, all the tribes. It was a really brutal game, but it kind of originated obviously with American Indians. And if you know the history of upstate New York, that's, so there's quite substantial, the Tuscarora, the Onondaga, it goes on and on. So a lot of the little lakes and little areas up there are named after American Indian tribes. So that was my thing, and I loved it. And growing up skiing, so I did winter sports. I tried to do the swimming thing. I was always a strong swimmer. I did swimming and diving, but honestly, it bored me.
Really?
Yeah, I just got bored. I just sit here and swim and swim and swim. No music, no one to talk to. I just didn't see the, and I would leave and I would go change out and go to I got to be careful saying mountain, go to the ski area, and I would race. And so I just kind of gave up the whole winter sport thing. Like, I'm not gonna be a swimmer. I'm not gonna be a diver. It's not my thing. But lacrosse and skiing were my mainstays. And like I said, I excelled. I spent my life revolved around it. I remember my dad wanted me to get a job, my first job. So what do? I become a PSIA certified ski instructor.
Oh, wow.
If you know anything about, skiing and ski instructor, you don't make any money.
Right.
But I checked the box of I got a job. So I think I spent more money on my lunches during the week, than I would make instructing.
Oh gosh.
So I mean, people don't travel around the, all over the world to go to Dry Hill ski area and get a lesson. Like, it's not like Aspen or, Whistler Blackcomb. So, yeah. So that was really what I focused on. And my friends, all my buddies played lacrosse. So it was a great way. We always spent time together playing lacrosse. It was either off season, winter league, summer league, or we were skiing. And some of my friends snowboard, or they were also ski instructors. So it was a pretty great time. But to go back to your question about the military, so I went to college first, and
Okay.
yeah, I was like, no, I'm not doing the military thing, and I was really, to be honest with you, focused on my athletic career, I think a little bit more than academics. And, the pitfalls of being an 18-year-old guy at a school trying to be or not trying, but being a dual athlete, you've got a lot of distraction. School's fun. You're away from mom and dad. You got a few bucks in your pocket. There's parties, there's girls. Yeah. And then there's time management, coming back to time management, right? So racing and competing and playing lacrosse, and I just somehow didn't seem to juggle all the balls of life and all of that as well as some people. And so I was kind of a little bit ashamed of not doing well in school at all. Actually, they were kind of like, hey, we're not sure if you should come back for a semester. So, a little bit of disappointment. I thought, geez, how am I going to express this to my family? How am I going to let them know? And I thought the most responsible decision was, if I can't go and be a champion in athletics, not only will I join the military, but I'll take it a step further and try and go into the special operations community. And I remember coming home, and I don't know if I came home and I beat the news to them, or they found out that we're not sure if I can come back. The invitation was there. But I remember telling my dad, and he didn't believe me. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I was like, no, seriously, I'm going to do this. And it was probably because I was trying to beat the news that he was going to see, hey, I was trying to do damage control.
Right.
But I really felt bad because I had really generous parents who, would sacrifice and invest in me. And I felt like I was dropping the ball a little bit. I wasn't taking, my studies or being a student or the investment seriously. And I was at school with people who I knew who were working jobs and on scholarship or, things like that. And they took it seriously. And at that point, I think it was just a maturity level. And I just decided, you know what? I don't want anybody to spend any more money if I'm not making it happen.
Right.
And, and maybe I could have went to a fluffier school, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of realizing that, not everybody's cut out for that path. And I think right now we're in this era of, Mike Rose, a big advocate of trades, and everybody for the longest time, the push was go to college. It's the way. You're not going to get a good job, and you're not going to be anybody if you don't go get a. And while I believe education is actually paramount and imperative, whether unconventional or strung together, however you do it, to move our life forward, right, and in all areas of our life. But the push then, and that's why we lost. All of a sudden, everybody went to college. We had all these people. We had all these. Have all these waitresses and bartenders at Applebee's who've got bachelor's degrees.
Right.
And, now all of a sudden we don't have HVAC techs and mechanics and plumbers and, and who's growing the food for America and things like that. So and I think the pendulum is starting to swing the other way. in our country. But I think there was a lot of pressure. Like, it wasn't okay to be 18. It's like, what's your plan? You know, what's your plan? And honestly, I think now that I'm a parent, I think in a parent, you realize, like, hey, maybe my son's not ready to go to university. Maybe he's not ready to go in the military this year either. Maybe I just need to help him go get a light-hearted job or be a bar back or bartender. He just needs to go have fun and figure it out. And when he gets tired of that, then it's time to be serious and really, or when you see someone else, kind of some of your friends moving life forward, and we all move at different paces. And I think that's more of a conversation some parents should be willing to have, is taking stock of what's best for their child, not what the neighbors hear about or what sticker you can put on your car, but what really suits them and where they're going to find success. Because I really do think you can handicap somebody when they go somewhere and they're overwhelmed and they don't do well. And if you're in an environment like you feel like the dumbest guy around, like everybody else is making this happen and you're not, it can, not only a little shattering on your self-confidence, but it can send you down a negative path, where you start falling behind and things of that nature. So I think there's different paths for different people. And, so I got to try a couple of them. So I came home, said, hey, I'm signing up. And I go to the recruiter, and actually a buddy of mine is also in the same plan. He went to college in Vermont, and he had his different trials and tribulations, and just realized at the time he wasn't making, the right decisions and wanted a different challenge. And so I was like, what's the next hardest thing, So I decided to go in. I signed a contract to go to the Naval Special Warfare Training Center.
And was that the first recruiter you saw was Navy?
Yeah, I didn't shop around. Growing up in an Army town, I wanted nothing to do with that haircut. And I saw it. Okay. No, and if I had been in a Navy town, maybe I would have been opposed to a Navy, and I would have sought something else out, right?
Right.
So you're in upstate New York, and you hear your dad and your uncles tell these great stories, and you're thinking, in some regard, you're thinking seafaring, like out to sea. It's this glorious, great thing. But I latched on to the SEAL thing. I'm a strong swimmer, and the athleticism and the mystery of, training. Can you make it happen? Can you not? Can you rise to the challenge, kind of thing? And I was all about a challenge at the time. I wasn't about just going in the military to catch a paycheck or get free college. I was like, no, I want the challenge, right? Like, right. I felt like I didn't rise to one, so I'm like, I'm gonna rise to another one.
And what did your mom think?
I mean, both my parents were supportive. Honestly, they thought it was a very responsible decision. They knew what I was doing. They knew I was kind of like, hey, I'm not doing what I should be doing, and I've been kind of dropping the ball. So this seemed like a logical opportunity for a reboot, and I mean, you're going in the military. It's like a you don't know what to expect at first. It's like this, You're going somewhere strange and far, and this new experience, and you can only imagine what it is. So it was like a little bit of a mystery and a journey, and it was exciting.
What was it like? I can make the assumption that because you were physically active and into sports, etc., right? That boot camp, probably as far as the physical side of that, probably wasn't all that difficult for you, or was it?
Well, to not disparage the Navy, but Navy boot camp was really disappointing. And then you have to be realistic and pragmatic about it. Like, sailors and soldiers are different, right?
Right.
So they're training people to go in on ship. You learn seafaring skills. You spend a lot of time in the USS Marlin Spike and doing things that serve a nautical task. Right. And not that the Navy doesn't find fitness, all that as important, but it wasn't what I expected in all the movies. And I knew that it was not going to be the U.S. Marine Corps Paris Island experience. I knew it was not going to be, bivy sacking or, tenting and digging foxholes in the Army. Like, I knew that. So in that regard, especially at my age, I was like, this is kind of, I was a serious athlete and playing in college and running and training and lifting weights and this and that. So I actually, to be honest with you, I got out of shape probably in boot camp. I used to go and because you had to be prepared to do your test, your exam for my program, right? I had a contract if I can make it, if all my medical goes well and this goes well, and which they sort of determine in MEPS.
Right.
But there's a lot of contingencies because selling these contracts, Top Gun and the Navy SEAL movies were fantastic recruiting tools. Everybody's going to go be a fighter pilot and everybody's going to go be a SEAL. And then somehow thousands of other people just matriculate into the Navy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a whole battery of exams, and obviously aptitude is one of them. Your ASVAB, they have a baseline, and because that job is a lot more than just bravado and whatnot. It's intelligence, and there's a lot going on, and that's I mean, it's in the service, but it's especially in the communities and to give everybody their due across every branch, not just the Navy. So yeah, the boot camp experience, and so I would go into the bathroom in the evenings and do pull-ups and extra push-ups, and
because you just didn't get enough.
Yeah, I was excited about it. I was like, yeah, I just want to do this. And the RDCs we had to our unit weren't the running extra PT type. So when they would come in for our little, I say beatings, and I say that kindly, like, what we say, the general public, it wasn't beatings, but it was like you're getting, I don't know, these modern terms. You can't say hazed, but
slayed.
Yeah, they would come in, and I was like excited, and people were like, oh no, and I was like, all right. And so I remember my RDC was really upset because he's like, how is it, Siver, that every time I come in here, you're in PT gear, like you're ready? Like I was just sitting around waiting for the beatings. I knew sooner or later in boot camp they're coming, right? They're gonna throw the trash can down the hallway. They're gonna come in, and something's gonna be wrong, and it's gonna account to us doing push-ups, sit-ups, and jump jacks. That's what it's gonna boil down. So I was just ready. So I had the PT socks on and the sneakers rather than the crappy dungarees and all that. That used to really annoy them. So
they hated you were already prepared.
Yeah, and I kept getting caught with white socks on, which was a thing. So they would put me on the midnight to 2 shift, that was the start of turning me into an insomniac. But it was a beautiful thing because as we got closer, like I think a few weeks into basic training, my contract afforded me the ability to go and do, they called it SEAL PT, but it was like anybody who was in a program had to go down to the pool and we got a workout in. Like it was legit.
Nice.
It was all the pain and suffering that we all aspired for and more than we thought we bargained for. So I would essentially go on this like watch at night and then I would just let myself out. So I was just like, I'm off to the pool. And so I would just disappear. So I would come back from the pool and have a nice long leisure breakfast. And it was the best thing ever. And so there was a handful of us onto this little trick and we would just matriculate in later. So I'd go back and shower by myself for like a third or half of boot camp. This was my experience. I was having you know what I mean? Monday through Friday when the PT was on, I was like, why would I hustle back early and go through the rigmarole? And I'm just kind of like on my own thing.
That's funny.
So I learned a little bit of how the military works and, head down, move fast, move with a purpose, don't make eye contact. And,
right.
Anyway, so
Oops.
Yeah.
Christine, welcome. So Christine is also Navy.
Okay.
So
awesome.
Yeah, she's happy. I have I think probably at this stage in my podcasting career, probably the majority are Marines. I mean,
Okay.
I've had obviously all branches with one except, well, two. Haven't had any Space Force yet for veterans, and I have not had any Coast Guard veterans, but a lot of veterans are Marines. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I am a Marine mom. So I have 2 Marine veterans.
Okay.
So a lot of times we get that call of, hey, so-and-so is a Marine veteran. And it's like, okay, great. Let's just put you in the schedule.
Yeah.
But so Christine, very happy. She's happy. So you obviously you're having a great time at this stage of it because you've gotten more PT to help you, kick up those endorphins and moving forward.
Well, really what it was about is you go to the PT because you have an entrance exam. In hindsight, that entrance exam seemed so easy, but in the beginning it was not. And so you need to be able to ace that test really well, because if
Okay.
you fail it, you don't get your program. So there's a lot on the line. So those PTs and they were fun. There was a lot of camaraderie. You're getting yelled at. They're saying horrible things it's fun. It was so much a different environment than the regular harassment of boot camp. These were all folks from Naval Special Warfare, the EOD, possibly SWIC, SEAL community. And so the harassment was fun. It reminded me of like college, right?
Right.
And so one of my skills and weaknesses at the same time is I just always thought everything was funny. And, I just embraced it. And the cool thing is I'm still friends with some of those guys and then this program was called the Scruff program. And if you had orders to buds, you kind of fell under their wing for a while. And then literally all day, this is what you did. You helped with the other recruits and you did that entrance exam like 3 times a day sometimes.
Oh, wow.
So it was at a point where you were just like, I've got this. And you hung around the instructors and you just got harassed all day. You'd pick up their trash and do push-ups all the time, spin the wheel of misfortune, which, you spun it in the office and whatever it landed on, it was like what you did. And it might've been 100, 8-count bodybuilders or push-ups or something. And so it was like good torturous fun. And so I was excited to finally leave grave mistakes, which I called it. It was a pretty miserable place.
Was it that bad, huh?
It just a training command is just kind of like tough. Someone's yelling at you from 200 yards away to keep your hands out of your pockets, and it's cold and gloom and doom, and you're an nobody, you're broke and bald, and it just and you're just thinking about sunshiny places like Coronado or San Diego, and so it's pretty motivating. But so I made a bunch of friends who are all heading in the same direction. So these are going to be people that you're going to be integrating into a class with. So that was kind of nice, to show up at a really, at the time you're, I say scary place, but you're really nervous, right? This is a really big deal. It's some of the hardest military training in the world. And you have a chance at it. And the odds are stacked against you. It's like, it's like 89 or 90% washout. Yeah. And so, you just, every day's a test. So, I got to check in with a few of those guys and then there were a few guys coming behind. And, so that was quite an experience. And so, so I classed up in buds and loved it. Absolutely loved every minute of the hazing and torture. And, it's funny. I took leave with a few buddies in Coronado who are already within Naval Special Warfare. So I was following their protocol. Like they were already in the club, right? So they were just having fun on the weekends, drinking beer. And I thought I could do that. So I really got out of shape and I showed up and it was a challenge. Sand runs, the amount of running, I just didn't stop. And, but the funny thing is it was a blessing in disguise because I was out of shape. I had a few pounds to lose. Like I had, I could take some of the beatings and I was getting in shape rather than, there were guys there that were training so hard that they already had overuse and overtraining injuries.
Oh, yeah. And
so your biggest fear in that place, a lot of people, they're in the mindset that quitting's not an option, but it's your health and your body. Right. And there's a big misconception is that not everybody goes there to quit, but some people, their body just breaks. I mean, I just watched it on a regular basis. Muscles tear, things that can't be rehabilitated in 8 weeks or 6 weeks. And so you don't fall in a criteria of that, you're gone. You have to go meet the needs of the Navy and the Navy needs to get work out of you. So you saw, sadly in a program like that, you saw people's dreams being shattered on a regular basis.
Right.
Big, strong, grown guys crying. And you're just like, man, that could be me. So you had to be really smart in your off time. If you get in trouble, everybody there is 19, 20, 21, 22, 23-year-old boys in San Diego. Like what can go wrong, and cars. And it's like, let's go to Mexico. Let's go downtown. So guys find themselves in situations and and I guess looking back, it's really a test of, it's like maturity, right? Who can play the game and color in the between the lines and stay healthy and make this training a priority, and maturity factors into that, a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
And so you see a lot of people leave the program for different reasons. I ended up getting hurt. I was in class 225, and I remember I tore my hip flexor right prior to Hell Week, and I was so upset. I thought these guys were my best friends, and this was the best class ever, and we were considered a beat class because of who the proctor of the class was. This guy was just relentless on us, and instead of being released to dinner every night, he'd call us back for more beatings, just to show love. And so we would jog home all worn out, beaten down from the warfare center to our barracks, when it was dark out. And it turned out to be a valuable thing, even though I got hurt and I was really upset. I was allowed. I was kind of a hard charger, and they were like, "We're going to invite you to stay, or you need to rehab. Like, you show promise." And so I reclassed up with kind of a famed class 226. A lot of guys out of that class, like Marcus Luttrell, did big things. And so I started all over again, and I was like, the first few weeks of class, I was like, man, this is nothing. Like, because it was a different proctor and there were some staff changes. Some of the real handlers were not there. So I just remember thinking, man, you guys don't know. This is kind of gravy compared to what we were doing every day. But it's, again, I'm doing that all over again.
Right.
So if very few guys, I think, a typical class is like 38 guys out of like 200 or 190. And so very few of those 30 some guys make it through in the 6 months training. I think it's still 6 months. They've revamped training so many times since 1999. I don't know.
Right.
And it's gotten more elaborate and intense. And these guys actually come out of there a lot better trained, ready to go into a platoon and start working and further their training, but they have better understandings of their job. But so a lot of people get injuries, and they're called rollbacks, and you get a roll, and you have to go through PTR&R, and you wait till the next class is up, and you start it all over again. So you can imagine if you have an injury, it's tough on your body.
Right.
And ultimately, I ended up succumbing to a torn hip flexor that I just going into second phase, I couldn't rehabilitate it. And they were kind of cleaning house. There was a lot of broken guys, good guys that people were that were hanging around. And this new commanding officer, Admiral, it was McGuire, left, and he said, "We got to clean this place up. There's all these broken guys laying around, and these guys got to go to work." And so, it was like, you don't get that extra role. And so I kind of heartbroken, matriculated back to the Blue Water Navy, which was really hard for me to stomach for a long time. But in some ways was also another blessing in disguise, because a lot of other opportunities opened up.
Right.
I went overseas. I was fortunate to get myself into the Mediterranean. And I did basically like kind of physical security, anti-terrorism stuff. And so I got to live in Italy, and I started, I'm sorry, I backed that up. I lived in Greece first. So I was in Greece, and then I've linked up with some friends there who taught me how to squeeze everybody to leave and travel out of the Navy. And I traveled like crazy, got to go skiing. And
oh, wow.
in the summertime, it was Greek islands and just did a lot of stuff. But I went to Italy, and that's where life was awesome. I started translating. I learned Italian pretty quickly and started doing patrols with the Carabinieri. And occasionally with just interaction with the NCIS and whatnot. But the living in Italy was amazing. Sardinia, Italy was pretty special place on the planet. And to be a 24, 25-year-old guy and living in Sardinia, Italy in the summertime, where only the rich and wealthy get to vacation, was an awesome time. So it was a worldly experience for me, picking up another language, and which kind of fed the food and wine machine, which kind of was another thing in life. That's why I picked up the bug. I was like, wow, food and wine in Italy is a big deal, and it brings people together, and that was pretty spectacular. So I had these ideas of the restaurant thing, and at the time, Italy was great, I remember a bunch of friends looking into federal opportunities within the U.S. Marshals and different branches, and I was kind of a little bit burnt out. I was like, I want to go do my own thing and kind of do this business entrepreneurial thing.
And you're thinking this while you're still deployed.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, you know what, I didn't. Here we go again. I didn't kind of accomplish my initial goal, and I got some great experience, which opened a lot of doors. Kind of really, all this is a stepping stone for what built a lot of things up in my life. I mean, I give all credit to the Navy. That decision to join the Navy, even though there was some shortcomings on my part that I didn't seem to fulfill at that time, it just really opened the doors up for a lot. So, I wanted nothing to do with any sort of law enforcement or federal anything. I was just like, I'm going to go be a businessman and, all that jazz. That was the idea. I wanted to live the good life.
Right.
And, so I thought. So I returned back to upstate New York trying to figure out a plan. And I kind of went through a medley of things. I actually started working on Fort Drum on base. And for a while with a company, I helped stand up a physical security contract. And then transitioned in the fire department because I was a damage controlman in the Navy. That was my rate.
Oh, okay.
Because had what was called a SEAL Source contract. You had to have back then a SEAL Source rating. So there's certain rates. So damage control fell under that. So that was my rate. I was a Navy fireman, even though I never really, was out to sea and worked as a firefighter at all. It gave me the opportunities to kind of explore some opportunities within the fire department. So
damage control for you was more along the lines of fire.
Yeah, but I didn't work in my rate, kind of classic Navy stuff. Like, here's your job. This is what you're supposed to test into, but you're going to do something totally different. And at the time, it totally doesn't make sense. But at the time, it was fine. Honestly, I was just enjoying living in Europe, traveling, doing, really, like, I was skiing, and every time I had leave, I was someplace. So I loved Italy. It was a blast. And I came home, and it was tough to go back to upstate New York. You've been a little bit worldly, you've been, floating all around, and now you're back in Watertown, New York. And I'm like, I don't know about this. And it was like, I felt like I kind of outgrew my little town, which is a great place to, it was a great place to grow up and still a great place to visit. But I just felt like it didn't, offer a lot of opportunity. So funny enough, a swim buddy who was also in BUD/S who got hurt, family had an inn in Virginia. And they had an 18-room inn with a German, like a wine bar and a restaurant. And so we had this dream, like, all right, we're going to revamp this thing. We're going to make this thing huge. And then we're going to take one into DC and, all these big illustrious dreams that, young guys have.
Yep.
And so I went down there and it didn't work out. I went down and gave it a shot. And, but I met some people down there that had interest, and I found my future business partner actually, and went back to New York, and then made the decision to just throw caution to the wind. I took a gamble and opened up and co-owned and ran Tolliver House, and that was fun. So it was kind of like taking up my experience in Italy and getting to put it into a concept.
And this is a restaurant?
Yeah, this was a restaurant that was in Gordonsville, Virginia.
Okay. And is it still there?
Unfortunately, it's not. The building is. We renovated. It was a 145-year-old building, and it was the Tolliver House before. My partner and I reacquired it, from somebody else. It was closed for a while, and it was a neat restaurant with a neat following. It was like, I think, maxed out on the porch. It was like 90 seats. The bar sat 7 people, so it was this quaint little place. So it was continental American, Virginian style fare. We had a little bit of crab cakes and chops, and it was a cool place. It was like a small town kind of restaurant. And I kind of partnered up on another one and jumped into another Italian restaurant, which was cool. So again, it was kind of getting to apply some of my experiences in Italy into a concept of the menu, the wine list, the experiences, and all of that. So that was a great run. But I learned quickly from a father who owned a tavern back in upstate New York back in the day that it's not all, it's not all sunshine and money flying in the register. It's a tough racket.
Yeah.
And,
a lot of hard work.
you wear many hats. And, I didn't go to culinary school. I just had a good work ethic from the military, and I had drive, and I've been overseas, and I'm a guy who likes to eat and drink. And so I've been to a lot of nice places, and I felt I knew what good customer service was. And I felt I knew so you learn a lot of stuff on the fly that you would have been taught in, a formal curriculum of a culinary school. So, you're now responsible for people. I'm a young guy, and all of a sudden between two places, we're employing like 60 some people.
Right.
And most of which were not full-time, some were. And then you also realize in the restaurant business that everybody is very keen to not only eat, drink, but also give your stuff away.
Oh yeah.
And
it's not theirs, of course.
Yeah. So, you're a coworker, you're a manager, you're a leader, you're a corrections officer, you're a detective, you're a
Psychiatrist, psychologist.
And it's funny. We had two different restaurants. So there's two totally different vibes. One was like an older crowd. We didn't have to worry about anybody, it was, middle-aged people, servers, and small town. And then downtown was a bunch of college kids. And, so it was different problems under different roofs.
Right.
But it was quite an experience, and I loved it. If you ever get a windfall of money and you need a loss leader, a restaurant is a lot of fun to have your own place.
Oh gosh, I don't have that kind of patience.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yeah. It's late nights. You're there, and like I said, to get it off the ground, and to be profitable or to be successful, you're really burning the candle at both ends. And whether you're 26 or 36 or 46, it's a lot.
Right.
And it's your life. So, in the midst of all that, the opportunities were brewing up in the Middle East, and I had some friends who were contracting, and they were doing really well. And the itch that needed to be scratched was what I didn't get to fulfill within the Naval Special Warfare Center.
Right.
Was, wow, I can kind of go and kind of lean into a little bit of that experience. Because I had some pretty good training and some good experience, and in the military. And so I was able to go overseas, and I started contracting, and I worked for a handful of different companies. I worked in a bunch of different places. I was all over the Middle East. And I just kept adding to the toolbox of knowledge, experience, and training, and I just kind of was able to kind of keep moving forward as far as the opportunities and the contracts I was able to work on. And it was quite an experience. And ultimately I spent 5.5 years roughly between Iraq and Afghanistan, almost consistently. You come home, or you work 3-4 months on, and you come home for about 30 days and you go back. And ultimately the goal for a young guy is not only to be there, but to make the money, because the money was great at the time. And I rode the wave at like the peak. So you get paid when boots are on the ground. So you spend most of your time there. And so it was quite an experience. It was like an adventure. I was an instructor. I was on a mentor team, living off a 4-wheeler and Indian country. And I've lived in a safe little compound and had a great chow hall. I mean, I've done it from convoy security, protection, EPD, executive protection details. So I did a lot of different things. I taught the Afghan border patrol. So we were trying to teach the Afghans to stand up and, protect their own country. And that was
How did that go? What was that like? I guess I should ask. What was that like to teach?
Man, unfortunately, a lot of the Afghan people were not really that motivated. We pumped, billions and billions of dollars into it. We were trying to give them the training, we were giving the equipment and the tools and everything to stand up. And, it was kind of crazy as you see Americans take pride in their country. And, since the inception of America, about fighting for our safety and, all of that, they just don't have that innate sense in them about duty and service and obligation to their country. They're really as loyal as their next paycheck. So one week you have an Afghan border patrol officer, and the next week he's in the Taliban, or vice versa. So, education levels are extremely low over there. Most of the guys we were trying to train and teach, were illiterate, and some people didn't even know what the internet was. So the challenge of that is sometimes people are taught things, whether it's about their faith, their religion, and sometimes they're misled. And that's how, you get to see how terrorism is and terrorists are formed and built, kind of like gangs in the United States. People that don't have much, or they're hungry, they don't have a lot of family, and someone takes them in and says, "Let me feed you, and let me teach you about this and how to be a good, good, you know what I mean, a good."
Right.
And so it was an eye-opening experience. There were definitely some good people. I had some great interpreters, Afghans. Some of them have big hearts, kind people, and can be loyal, and just like Americans, some are not. But it was sad, fast forward years later, to just watch that country fall after we put so much into it.
Right.
We wanted for them what they didn't want for themselves, is all I can think of. And that's not everybody. I'm generalizing, but
Right.
I would deal with on a regular basis in the Afghan Border Patrol. I forgot how many people were in that organization. A lot of unmotivated people that they wanted to catch a paycheck. They didn't really want to do a lot. If there was a fight coming to them, a lot of them were going to throw their rifles and leave, or take their uniforms off. So you can see the security of the country, right? Because Afghanistan was trying to keep bad guys out from going to and from, but they're just like, I'm not going to bother with these guys, or bribes, or whatever.
Now, you were talking about how they just didn't have that innate sense of protecting their country, in standing up to do so. And I've got to say, so we've had several foreign exchange students, and for them coming to this country and seeing how patriotic most Americans are, right? With flags in their front yards, and standing for the national anthem, and, just so on and so forth. They're just shocked, because what I have been told by them is that it's truly unique in that regard to America, right? Where, you're taught from a very young age, that, you stand for the flag, and so on and so forth. And they just, a lot of countries just aren't that way.
And it's, that is awesome. And it's, it's kind of funny. There's certain places overseas, there's a little town in France that, America celebrated because they remember what we did. And so now it's honestly sad when I see, and everybody has we're in a bit of dealing with this woke culture, and, our patriotism seems to be on the decline. And, it's sad, because it's kind of like a, ebb and flow, when bad things happen, like after 9/11, God bless the troops, American flags everywhere, on their cars. Like, it was just awesome, and when that wanes, it's sad. And, I think that's why veterans, obviously, they're overseas or away from home. And you realize what you have when you're overseas serving somewhere else.
Right.
And I think, I don't think we should ever be the draft is a dangerous thing, and it can have disastrous effects on our military if it's not absolute necessary to our continued survival as a country. But because we have a great professional fighting force, and that's who you want there. You want people that want to be there.
Right.
But I think it's a great experience for people. I can't explain it. I would never force my kids to go in the military, but I wouldn't be appalled to it either. So they have that sense of service and understand, but yeah, so it's kind of sad now when you see, you go to a sporting event, you see it's the national anthem, and there's people that don't they're not into it. They're disgruntled about something. We're an imperfect country with an imperfect past, just like every other country.
Yep.
And we've moved forward in a major way. And I wish people were more open to seeing that we've made a lot of progress, and we're still making progress.
Yeah.
And we don't have to have a perfect history to be a great country and to love our country. And I wish that view, it's tough. There's a lot of programming out there that contrary to, I feel like when I say programming, I almost feel like it's programming people to not be patriotic, and they're focusing on negative history. And while I think it's imperative that we learn from, the places where we came from as a society.
Yeah.
We can't hide
our
from
mistakes, right? We learn from the mistakes too. And to focus on the fact that, the mistakes were made, and continually harp on that versus what did you learn from it, and how did we better ourselves? That's the key. It should be the key takeaway.
Yeah.
So now you served with in one of the contracting companies with a friend and guest, Lee Deckelman.
I did. Lee and I worked together in a few companies. He's a great guy. I have the utmost respect for him. I mean, the guy has a heck of a background. You know, he was an athlete before he went in the military, and he went to Ranger School. He fought through adversity and all kinds of crazy circumstances and injuries, and he was going to take no for an answer. And he became an 18 Delta Special Forces medic, which, I mean, those guys are the surgeons of the battlefield. And so you're no dummy to be able to not only make it through that course, but so we worked together in Iraq at a company, and then we ended up at Blackwater together in Afghanistan, and became fast friends. And he's a great source of not only inspiration now, the things he's doing for veterans, but an accomplished and tough Green Beret Ranger athlete like him talking about how we deal and process with trauma is my hat's off. Because like I said, I came home 5.5 years and I went through a disability case with Blackwater, and I blew my back out. I went through IEDs. I had like 3 different injuries. Always trying to be the good guy, not documenting everything was not in my favor, but ultimately it kind of worked out in the end. And that was a really challenging time. You know, your body's beaten up and pre-aged a 30-some-year-old guy, and wondering if, like, you know, in a few years I'm going to have to walk with a cane, that kind of thing. So I came home and, you know, I started dealing with my own. You kind of tuck all this stuff away and you don't realize, like we said earlier, and, you know, as we were chatting earlier, is you don't realize you're dealing with things. You pick up bad habits. And like many other vets, whether it's drinking too much or, you know, searching out all the things for excitement and adrenaline, and bad habits pile up over time. And also not dealing with emotions or trauma. You're like, oh yeah, this happened, that happened. And you just don't deal with it. Or whether sometimes it's anger, you know, anger manifests because you're over in a country and you watch a lot of bad things. You know, during my time at Blackwater, we lost a lot of people.
Yes.
And you know these people, you live with them, or sometimes you don't know all of them, but some of these guys are, you know, you're one place and they're in another, and you hear about somebody getting, you know, severely wounded, maimed, or worse, you know, killed. And it's a hard thing. And sometimes to just go, okay, well, tomorrow morning I got to get in the truck and roll. And is that my day? And you live with that over your head for a while. And so a lot of guys pick up bad habits. So I called it extreme living. You know, a lot of guys were making really great money, and they would go over there and they would do this job, and they would come home. You try to be normal. And now you just got a lot of money to feed the machine.
Right.
You know, excessive living and partying, and it's fun. It's kind of fun. I'd be remiss to say that, but there's consequences. And like I said, you unintentionally stack up bad habits. And we're starting to scratch the surface where people are aware of this, and there's people to talk to, and it's not an embarrassing thing. And, you know, 25 years ago or 20 some years ago, it wasn't cool for a special operations guy or anybody, some bearded tattoo guy, to go to yoga studios. But now all these guys that want to stay they want to stay in the game, and they want to be operational. They're taking care of themselves. They're treating themselves like a proper professional athlete. And that's essentially what everybody is. If you're at that level, you know, or even overseas contracting, you're depending on your body to move and to keep yourself safe and to serve others. And you can't do that. So, so going back to Lee, he's been one of many voices out there that's just talking about it. And he went through a lot of struggles. And like I did, you know, I found myself in some precocious situations. I wasn't managing my own wellness, or, you know, frustrations with my injury, and your body not, you know, all of a sudden you're this wounded, you know, individual. And, but, you know, when I kind of got cleared physically, I actually started, you know, my way of getting back in the game was, I wasn't going to go back on a battlefield, or, you know, really be able to be contracting at the time. So I got into government military sales, and that was the best way that I could support not only the war fighter, myself and my family, but the taxpayer. So when you're in government contracting, you're bidding, right? You got to sharpen your pencil and you got to compete against, who knows, 100 or 5 other guys, 5 other quotes. And so the winning quote means the taxpayer won, right?
Right.
So you're serving the customer and you're helping them. And I took pride in that. And I can't, after coming home from Iraq, Afghanistan for all those years, I knew what the environment was like and what guys needed, what worked, what didn't, you know, and things that you figure out. So it's kind of like when you have kids, you know, and like it's a $1 billion industry and they sell you all these gadgets for having a baby and you think you need everything. And they make things to tell the temperature on the thermometer when all you got to do is stick your hand under the faucet and be like, that's good. Well, it's kind of like the military. Sometimes there's a lot of things that are just silly, useless, worthless, or they sound good on, sound good on paper or seem good until you practical application proves that they're just a waste of weight in your pack.
Now, was this for all branches of the military, or was there a specific?
I mean, absolutely, because everybody has to buy, right? Everybody buys everything. The military buys jet skis, they buy laptop computers, they buy training services, they send guys to lockpicking school. You buy gloves, underwear, helmets, sunglasses, skis, you name it, they buy it. Dive gear. So they buy everything. We just paint it black or brown, right? We buy it. We charge more to paint it black and brown, essentially. So every cool brand you see in like a high-end sporting goods store, Arc'teryx, Patagonia, they have a government division and for the warfighter. And it's the population, our battlefield technology advances medical in a major way. Every time we're in a conflict, we learn so much quickly. We have to adapt. So there's, the general public, receives a lot of benefit to it. Those gussets you wear in jackets that keep, stay on skiers were designed for shooters in the military, a long time ago. And I remember when North Face introduced those, everybody thought that was like some really wild stuff. And now they're on every ski jacket.
Yeah.
So little things like that. But we're a part of that. The sales guy is actually working with the manufacturer. The customer says, no, make this better. We go back to the manufacturer. We work together. So you're working on all these cool projects and you're improving things. And so that's kind of rewarding. And when you win, it's monetarily, it's pretty awesome. But the customer's happy and the taxpayer's happy and you're winning and it's good stuff. So that's been an enjoyable part of, still kind of being in the fight, if that makes sense. You're a little envious. You see these young guys get to go do cool stuff and you're happy for them. But you're happy to be able to provide them the gear that keeps them warmer, drier, safer, happier. So
we do have a question, and I'm going to go ahead and bring this on. Usually I put those out at the end, but first off, I want to say, Jacob Davis, thank you very, very much for joining. This is, I believe, the first time at least you've been in the chat. So thank you for that. And he says that he ships out January 9th to be an MA. Any tips or advice for boot camp? And thank you so very much for volunteering to do this, Jacob.
Okay. Well, it sounds like Jacob has an opportunity to a future career in law enforcement, Master at Arms. They actually can do some cool stuff. Master at Arms were in Afghanistan and Iraq in the battlefield, and they do, and sometimes they're employed in a soldiering sort of fashion. But obviously it's a law enforcement trade. Boot camp is just, be the gray man, work hard, get in shape, learn how the Navy works, and pay attention to detail. That's what I would say is and for the rest of your life, what you'll notice when people don't clean their shoes or iron their shirts, that's something you pick up in boot camp. And so
he's trying to learn as much as possible. You're
going to have a swim test. You're going to have to jump off a platform. Hopefully you're not afraid of heights. It's not a big deal. You jump and then you swim and tread water for a little bit. It's basic like if you're in the Navy and you're going to be on a ship and you have to jump overboard, that you can survive.
How high is the depth that you're jumping from? Best
25 feet.
Okay.
Nothing too crazy. You have to go up on a high dive platform and then you jump in the water, and some people get scared about it, but there's a test, and believe it or not, you'll be in the Navy and you'll see about 40 people fail a swim test out of your division, like 30% or 20%. It's crazy. I'm like, where do these people think they were going?
Yeah.
But no, boot camp is just really, you're learning a lot. You're in a classroom a lot. You're learning a lot of professionalism. The Navy is really focusing on, a modern professional force. You're learning about rank recognition and history of the Navy and basic seamanship. So all good stuff. Don't blow it off, learn, and it'll be helpful. And then you're going to go on to your own school. You're going to go to a school and you're going to go to Master at Arms. I don't know if it's probably a 12-week school. You'll learn everything from basic law enforcement and uniform code of military justice and urinalysis and, stopping people and running radar guns. You're going to learn everything about being a police officer. I think it's in Lackland Air Force Base in Texas, if I still recall. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Jacob, thank you very much. Appreciate the question too. Thank you for that. So tell me how that you had surgery on your back?
Actually, I avoided surgery.
You did.
I still struggle with a lot of back pain. There's kind of like money in escrow for a back surgery, and I'm hoping I never have to use. But I struggle with a herniated and bulging disc, severe stenosis, and I think I have some other injuries that are just kind of in there that I've never really been diagnosed. So for me, it's constant maintenance. It's a foam roller and it's stretching and it's exercising. And if I get out of shape or put a few pounds on it, it hurts worse. So the best
Have you
thing I
ever
can do is
tried
keep up.
spinal decompression?
I have not. I'm always open to everything. I mean, you name it, gadgets, this, that. I mean, I've hung upside down in gravity boots. I've done it all. And I mean,
Okay, well, if you're hanging yourself upside down with gravity,
it's been a while since I've done that.
I think you would probably enjoy the spinal decompression. So I have done it. I had done it for several years, and amazing the difference. I had 2 degenerative discs, so yeah, and I'm good to go. So
if I could commit to just making more time for yoga, I'd be good. It's
there
really
you go. Yeah.
It's really about hamstrings and hip flexors, and that's like those things when they're tight, everything's a mess. So
yeah.
But so yeah, that's something I just still work through, and but yeah, I think nowadays it's for the modern, former military service member, people have been overseas and experienced things. I think mental wellness and just self-care is huge.
And how did you get through all of the mental anguish that you had seen while you were contracting?
Definitely in a bunch of unhealthy ways.
Okay.
I had to learn the hard way. I found myself made some poor decisions at some point, and I had a physical altercation, and which is not uncommon with a, well, I say not uncommon, maybe not common, but you learn the hard way, and that realize like you've got some things going on, and you have to work on, a better mindset, and so for me, I've also kind of looked at it the other way is focusing on gratitude and all the good things that I do have and opportunities that have been afforded to me, and not so much the woe is me or by any means a victim mentality at all, but that everything I've done, whether it be Blackwater or serving honorably in the Navy, like opened a lot of doors, and a lot of building blocks in my life have kind of come together. I wouldn't have had a pretty decent career in government military sales if it wasn't for the experience of being in the military and being deployed and being overseas and understanding the needs and requirements of the military, and be able to speak to those requirements. So, but as I get older, and you realize that, we all have scars. I mean, just anybody who goes through life without the military is going to have some scar tissue and some baggage. And I think it's when you get older that you just really want to focus on your happiness and your well-being. And especially if you're a parent, I'm a parent, you have children, you want to model a good life, like happiness and just taking care of yourself and being kind. If you're a person of faith, the Bible is all about serving other people and being kind to your neighbor and loving your neighbor. And it's just really simple as trying to be a good person. And when you focus on those things of being, sometimes anger and, or disappointment or resentment, some of those issues sort of fade. And I think they'll always take work, but you kind of really start focusing on the positive. And when you're constantly putting positive, your energy, like you're around positive people, you remove yourself from a lot of negativity. And that was, Misery loves company. And so when you get away from that and you get away from the external factors that are negative, if you have a problem with alcohol, then you need to really evaluate that in your life. And whether it's gambling or, you have poor relationship habits, some of these things domino and interconnect. And when you fix one problem, the next problem, it snowballs and the next other problems get easier.
Right.
Everybody's situation is different, but there's so much opportunity out there. Everybody's got internet everywhere. You can do research. You can find help and you can find good people. You find other veterans who've been through stuff, and there's support groups and there's great things. There's classes you can take. So it's really just about investing in yourself.
Right. And there's a lot of free things that you could do that are out there for veterans to
Absolutely.
help.
And my advice to anybody, if I could rewind the clock a few years back to avoid some things, some pain in my life, is be proactive about it. Don't wait. It's kind of like it's like taking driving school after you've gotten 2 speeding tickets, right? Like
Right.
it's driving school so I can reduce my insurance and make the judge happy. But maybe if I went through driving school before, I'd be like, kind of remember the hazards of the road and what really happens and stuff. So when it comes to like your wellness and, your life, everything's hinged on it is be a proactive approach. And that's, when you're a young guy, you just don't always think about that. You don't have time for that stuff. You don't make time for it. And our society is getting a little bit smarter about that, safe spaces and whatnot.
Right.
But there's something there in some regard of like, don't be embarrassed about your issues and work on them, and you'll be a better person. Your world will be a better, happier place. And that's where I'm at now. I've went through I've dealt with a lot of trauma, some even self-inflicted, and leaned into my faith. And I was able to read a lot of great books. I focused, a lot of intentionality of like, I want to digest some really good stuff and about everything. So my life is a happier and calmer and a better place. And it takes effort. And I don't think there's any shame in that for anybody.
Right. And talking about it, how is that for you?
Being on the other side of some things, I think is easier. I think it's a lot easier to talk about things. And also too, is some of my experiences have value because I can be helpful to other people. It's easier to talk to somebody when somebody opens up the can and says, man, I've been through this and I've done this and I made this mistake. Then you're kind of like, oh, okay. People don't feel as bad to participate in the conversation, or they're not the only ones who made a mistake or a bad decision or struggling with some issues.
Right.
Whether it's depression or whatever, people, a whole host of things. And it's not, these athletes are coming out and saying they're dealing with mental health now. And that wasn't something you didn't hear about in the NFL or the NBA saying they're dealing with depression or bipolar disorder or whatever. And now people are, and it's, they're being applauded for it.
Yeah.
So,
and it's obviously it's never easy, right? Because we've always been taught, suck it up, if you're injured, rub some dirt on it, move on, you're fine, etc. And so we've always learned to push emotion down, pain, etc., and keep it bottled up. And so now everybody's talking about it, mental health especially, and the importance of actually having that conversation. And I think twofold. One, that's what this channel is about, right? Is for you to be able to come on as a veteran and tell your story however you see fit. And hopefully in doing so, it's going to do 2 things. One, it's going to benefit you because you're going to get a lot of that weight off your shoulders, right?
Absolutely.
And just unbottling it. And 2, hopefully we'll be able to give some sound advice to other veterans who may be going through something similar that you were going through. And so
I came home after 5.5 years, and I was home for a few years, but things seep out of you. And I went, dealt with the loss of my father, and I started going through a really contentious divorce and left my company all at the same time. It just felt like the world
that's
was
a lot. Yeah.
And while I was home, I was busy, and I found some success in government military sales. And so you just shove that all to the back and you don't deal with it. And
you're like, okay, I'm better now. I've got something else to focus on.
Like, this is good over here, but no, it's not. It's not. It's there. And it's like, it's like the on Scooby-Doo when they open the closet and all the stuff falls out,
Yeah.
the bowling ball and everything is like just pouring out of this closet. And that's kind of what it's like. And that's kind of what happened to me. And I found myself in, and then it's like you said, it's all bottled up and you react poorly in some situations. And, and I had to deal with
And then you have those triggers. And then all of a sudden, when you least expect it, here it comes. Boom.
Yeah. You don't want to be a grown man putting your hands on somebody, and there's legal consequences and they're serious. And and I went through that without going into that rabbit hole. And there's consequences and repercussions, and like I said, I had to learn some things the hard way, and I'm on the other side of that. I can talk about that now, but if I could just wish that anybody else would know, like, you're in that place, like, to find a way, find an outlet, and make your world a better, brighter place. And because you got to live in it, you got to live in your skin for a long time.
And it's not, I have to say, it's the reason why, addiction is just so hard, whatever kind of addiction it is, right? Whether it's drinking, drugs, gambling, or, the internet, porn, whatever, is because it's muscle memory, right?
Yeah.
And also your negative thinking, as you were saying. So it's constant muscle memory. Something happens that you don't like, it's a negative effect, and negative effects have you do this, and this.
Yeah.
Right. And it becomes muscle memory. And so it's really hard to dig yourself out of that, because you've got to find something to replace it with. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And negativity is cancerous. And if you have a defeating mindset for a while, which even the most confident person who's found success in their life can kind of lose that. And you have this inner voice, this inner monologue that's not only negative, but constantly self-deprecating. You talk yourself out of a lot of things. And it's a really dangerous place. And, like I said earlier, misery loves company. So if you're finding yourself in company of people that share that, it's just garbage in, garbage out nonstop. And it's tough. And so sometimes you have to remove people out of your life that are not I shouldn't say a value add, but this just aren't bringing, there's vampires that just suck energy and positivity.
Right.
And you really have to think about who you allow into your life, because they affect you. You are you become the five people you spend the most time around. So, if those people aren't positive or happy, upbeat, or healthy people, there's a good chance you're going to be heading down the road that they are.
Right. That's very true.
It's like, I didn't go through any recovery program, but I know the big thing is, because I worked for a little while mentoring some people in a cognitive community, and they say people, places, and things are triggers for some people, and sometimes you have to remove yourself from people, places, or things. And so if you hang around a barbershop long enough, you'll get a haircut.
That is such a good analogy. Oh my God.
I got that actually from one of my former chefs, who was a very proudly recovering alcoholic, and he was a great guy and had a great career and everything after he battled his demons. But he always knew that. He would say, and here he's a chef in a restaurant, right? At night, everybody's having cocktails and whatnot, and he would hang out to say hello for a little bit, but he wouldn't stay too long, because he said, if you hang around a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut.
Right.
So just knowing your limitations. But so yeah, I just try to focus on, and it's daily work. It's daily work. You're trying to keep your feet moving forward and lead a good life and be positive and be helpful. But for me is, I've got a few irons in the fire of helping other people and focusing on lifting others up, because people are there to lift me up in some pretty rough times. And it's all about paying it forward and, being a good citizen, being a good parent, raising good human beings, one of the most important jobs on the planet, being involved with your children and doing everything you can to be involved with them and So we all know for the most part, what being a good human being is about, right?
That's right. That's right.
And just extending grace to other people.
Yeah.
Even the old lady who rips into the parking spot at the grocery store in front of you, that was clearly your spot,
That always reminds me of, there was a movie and I can't remember who played in it. or even the name of it. But she's about to pull into this parking spot, this little old lady and the two younger ladies pull in first, and something along the lines of, at least, she's at least got better insurance, and then proceeds to ram her. I can't think of the name of it, but it was a great movie and a great line.
But there's you were mentioning earlier, some people are putting some books out, but there's a lot of people that are sharing their experiences, and
they are.
Lee Deckelman's book, Internal Volume, is a great one. Not just because I make a small appearance in that book.
He actually, so I have a copy, and generally, we recently moved, and so all of the books that I have received are in a box.
Yeah.
So the newest one, Frank DeMyth's book that's there in the background, and then I have. So, are you familiar with Kirk Spradley? Do you know who he is? So he also served with Lee. His call sign was Tadpole. So yeah, and so his book is coming.
Okay,
so
awesome.
But yeah, so absolutely, and I know that Lee is actually, I think he's in a second rewrite, I think, of his book, and basically, so how did he put that? Where a monster and mindfulness become one. Yes.
And a lot of that is dealing with trauma, and he's been through a lot of it, and it's not always battlefield stuff.
Right.
I have some friends, that were in the special operations community that dealt with trauma, and they've pursued some, I don't know how I'd say it right now, but some of the alternative medicine that's out there that's really making an impact. That sometimes you have to leave the country to do, but he said, some of those things have helped him and removed all the trauma. And he said, John, the trauma wasn't for being this special operations guy and on the battlefield. It's like a lot of it was his childhood and life experiences. And that's what really hems a lot of us up. And so those things helped him process and move forward. And he says he's like an 8-cylinder engine running on 8 cylinders. He's happy, and he was kind of on the highway to hell with drinking and personal relationships and just unhappy and miserable. And but regardless, he made a proactive step to have a better life. So.
Hey, were your ears ringing, Lee? Welcome. We were just talking about your book. So my question, were you ever given a I just got sidetracked here. A handle, like code name. I guess that's probably not. Sorry.
Different contracts require different things. My last name is just, for some reason, always like, I think people even thought that was a handle, but just because I've kind of been a bit of a jokester and prankster, was Uncle Sully for a while, and I don't know how that came about, but that, and usually I've just been called by my last name, but so.
I was curious.
I definitely encourage people to. The cool thing about Lee's book is it's really trying to support veterans doing good things with yoga, and it's a little bit more than yoga. I can't do the justice to explain the awesome things that he's doing, but he's doing great things to help other guys like us who've been through a lot and found some challenges in our life. And I tip my hat to him, and there's other guys out there doing the same thing. It's all about lifting others up. And, Lee's been one of those guys who sent a lot of positive encouragement the last couple of years while I was digging myself out of some holes and kind of rebuilding and repurposing my life. And so that's huge. So it's just really about being proactive and just addressing issues, not waiting for something bad to happen to react.
Right. And Lee has provided you some, kind of a basic template, right? Of how he's managed to make it mentally to where he is at today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you having me on the show. It's been great to chat about it. There's so much more I could maybe when you need to circle back, we can jump on again.
That's fair. Let me go ahead and ask the audience if anybody out there has any questions for John, go ahead and put them out in the chats right now. And Christine says she needs a book to read. So yeah, go out and Christine, and I know this is one that I have been promoting for, well, a long time actually, at Lee Duckelman's book. And again, my mind just went blank.
You'll see me pop up in the book when you get about 3/4 of the way through it, and you'll think, man, that guy's a character.
Right. And it is called
Internal Volume.
Thank you. Internal Volume. Again, where a monster and mindfulness become one.
Right.
Great read. I do have it. I have it in a box. As I said, I've got to find it because we moved and everything just kind of all the boxes went together in one location. So we'll get that, and then I'll be able to physically show you. And actually, the artwork on the front cover of that is just amazing.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a story behind that as well. So let's see. So Jim says, let's see, where is he? Thank you. Yes, Lee says Internal Volume on Amazon. So check that out. He says, if you ever need a hardworking chef, Ian Ray, second place chopped a few years ago. He's a cordon bleu chef in Phoenix.
Well, if I ever win Powerball, I will definitely buy another restaurant. I'll give Ian Ray a call. I mean, the cordon bleu definitely puts out some amazing talent. But what I want to say the most is just I'm grateful that I was able to serve in the Navy. And people say, hey, thanks for your service. Like, I'm like, no, thank you. Thank you for paying your taxes to make sure I had a salary in my 20s to go around to do the cool and exciting things and meet the great. I forged lifelong relationships that opened so many doors, and the community has been so awesome and supportive of me. And it's also been the community that's paddled me when I got out of line. And
sometimes that's what you need, right?
Back up like a tough parent. So I think that's what it does. So, it's a gift to, I really believe, to be able to serve in whatever capacity. Not everybody has the glamorous, sexy job, and that's okay. You serve your country, and so I'm grateful too, and I'm so proud to tell my kids that I did, and like I said, it's opened up so many doors. Everything has been a domino effect. There wouldn't have been a this and a that if it all didn't start somewhere with the Navy and some of the life skills I picked up in that adventure.
And I know that Jacob had asked the question about any tips or advice for boot camp for becoming a Master at Arms. But for anybody who's interested in joining the military, regardless of branch, what would you say to that individual?
I would say treat this like a career, even if it's only for 4 or 5 years, and set your goals. Meaning, like, what is your plan? Are you showing up just catching a paycheck for a couple of weeks, or like, what is your 5-year plan? Like, I watched a lot of people in the military. They're in the military 2-3 years. They pick up a little bit of rank. They go buy a car. They do this. They do that. All of a sudden, they got all these payments. They're straddled with debt, and then their end of service comes up, and it's like, okay, time to get out. And they're like, well, I can't get out because I'm in debt. I got bills to pay next month.
Right.
And they had no goal, no plan. And what do you want to get from service? Like, are you going to go in there and get your education, like pound down part of your degree while you're in the Navy? Are you going to wait till after? A lot of people get out, they don't use their GI Bill. What do you want to do? Obviously you're going to serve whatever you do, whether you're, a mechanic or a diver or whatever, you're going to serve your country. But what is it that you're trying to get out of the experience, and how are you going to apply it to life later? Right. I wish I thought about that more. What I could extract that would help me down the road. Sometimes you chase things for the wrong reasons. And if you had told me to learn about logistics in the Navy, I would have been like, you're crazy, but how am I making a living? And it's dealing with procurement and logistics. And it didn't seem so glamorous back then in 1999. But really just do some soul searching about what it is you want, and shop around and see what programs they offer, and different branches, and how it's going to suit you. And I would really focus on that.
Yeah. And what kind of path that you decide on, always check and see how you could certify that in civilian life, what you're doing.
I mean, if you have a top secret clearance, there's people that are willing to hire you right away, because it's an extensive and expensive, requirement, I guess you could say, to have. Like it's a lot for a company to do that. So you're already a value add if you have a top secret a top secret or a secret when you walk out of the military. You add in leadership and management. There's a lot of people that are like, oh, great, you have an education, but you have no management experience. So you need to learn about managing people and possibly assets that you're in charge of. You could be in charge of $3, $4, $5 million worth of equipment. Those are all things that are valuable to an employer, and problem solving. And a lot of people realize if you've been in the military if you've been in the military 5 years, you've been in charge of people. So I would just think about, what the job, some jobs translate, some don't. Some people can walk right into a federal job. And also when you get out, you can buy your time back. So if you did 5 years in the Navy and you buy your time, you walk on a federal job. It's like you've been there for 5 years. So you padded your retirement, and you get points for applying for federal service for being a veteran. So there's a lot of benefits, but it's really just doing your homework and figuring out what, how this can serve you later in life. Sometimes we don't think about that when we're 19, 18, 19, 20.
Oh, no, because when you're that young, you don't realize how quickly the older you get, the faster life goes by. So Lee asked if you happened to talk about the fight that was in Afghanistan when you both worked with Blackwater.
No,
he is very proud of you and that you're on a wonderful path.
Well, I appreciate it. Supportive friends like Lee is largely why I'm a good part of why, outside of me being a dad, is why I'm on a great path. I want to lead a great life and model good stuff for my sons. And also there's a lesson in, resilience when things go south in life and you go through storms, that you can sail through them and you can come out the other side, even if it's not pleasant for a while. And that's really some of the big lessons that I've learned and hopefully modeling. But no, we didn't get into the little scuffle we got. Lee did not believe that there was a nightclub in Afghanistan, and I showed him that there was a nightclub in Afghanistan. And so you have to buy the book to read the story about a little bit of a scuffle with Blackwater versus, I think, State Department employees in Afghanistan.
Yes.
So.
But yeah, so great book, great conversation, John. I'm not seeing any other comments out there.
Okay.
So yeah, when we hit 500 subs, we're going to go ahead and do a giveaway. So be on the lookout. I may be seeing what you're up to if you want to jump on with some other veterans and help me celebrate that and do a little giveaway. So we're really excited to have you with us tonight and really enjoy the conversation. And again, if this conversation helps just even one veteran, we've done it. We've done what we set out to do. So
awesome.
So
Thanks
I appreciate
so much, Shirley. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Yes. And if you want to stay put, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and get ourselves signed out. Everybody, please, please, please join me here again next Sunday. I have another guest ready to go. So again, John, thank you. And we'll definitely be in touch. So hang tight. Everybody else, have a great week and be safe.